This is Toon Talk Weekly, episode 236. This week, Brad and I talk about some cartoons we wish we would have watched more of last year, and we watched an episode of the series Geronimo Stilton.
Aren't you going to tell us what the King of Wiscaristan wanted?
Oh, yes, the king has granted us the exclusive rights to cover the 1000th anniversary of the Kingdom of Wiscaristan.
It says here that Wiscaristan has been cut off from the outside world for generations.
That's right. We'll be among the first outsiders to go there in 1,000 years. Cool.
I'm going to go get the Meta Mouse ready.
I'm gonna go back.
I'm gonna go buy a bunch of gum for the trip.
Fire on!
The day just keeps getting better.
Where is that kid?
Hey everybody, it's Tuesday once again. That means it's time for another episode of the weekly cartoon podcast, Toon Talk Weekly. That's, of course, this show. So, of course, thank you for joining us once again to chat cartoons this week. My name's Jake Williams, but I brought along my good friend to talk cartoons, Brad Chmielewski. What's up, man?
Hello. No later this time. I am here at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, I left it in at the end of the episode that I told you were allowed to say later. Based on, I even saved that clip out and showed it to my wife, and she's like, "What is he talking about?"
Yeah.
Just one of those off weeks for Brad.
I think so, yeah. But I'm here now, ready to talk some cartoons. Excited.
All right, you only have a one episode streak of saying goodbye instead of hello at the beginning of the episode. How you been, man?
Yeah, I've been pretty solid. I'm out of, Clarence and Steven Universe, so I'm looking for a new cartoon to kind of sink my teeth into.
Yeah, it's something that always, I feel like, we've said this a lot, where, sometimes we feel like we're running out of shows, but I feel like it's maybe just, you can appreciate a very wide range of shows, but only a handful, you're going to go and, dig through a bunch of it to watch it.
Right, and I know last time we talked about our favorite shows of 2017 from the episode, so I went on and put a list together. My list, kind of same stuff we kind of mentioned on the show, but Teen Titans is one of those shows that I feel like I might dive into even more or wander over yonder. Yeah,
I think for sure. And I think if you guys head on over to Brad's Twitter at BRad or the Toon Talk Weekly at Toon Talk Weekly Twitter, I think we both linked the articles up over there, so you can check them out over there. And I'm glad you put some together because it was a really good write up, especially about OKKO, which is when you first see it, the art it invites you in, but then it's a little rough around the edges. There's something about it that feels a little off to you, but the show itself is good enough that you kind of get past that and it becomes part of the style.
Yeah.
Especially you were coming from shows that are pretty cleaned up in general, with Clarence and Steven Universe.
Right, yeah, that's very detailed, but yeah, the OKKO is sometimes we draw the characters different shapes. It is what it is.
Just accept it and move on at this point. Yeah. Cool. So hopefully in the new year to come, we end up finding another couple of those shows. I was actually thinking while watching this week's cartoon, which is a cartoon called Geronimo Stilton, which we'll get to in just a moment. I was actually thinking about what I just want to call my missed opportunities or something, my, what is that dating saying? Or you missed connections.
Misconnections, okay.
You talked to some lady about a book you were both reading on the bus, and I forgot to ask your name. Anyway, I was thinking about my missed connections in terms of cartoons, and for me, those are the cartoons that I really, really enjoyed. The 1 to 2 episodes we checked out for the podcast, but either it left a streaming service, or I got busy, or something happened, and I never made the time to go watch more. And I was thinking a lot about Avatar: The Last Airbender for some reason. Like,
Oh, that's right. You were making the case to watch that for a while.
and then I think it was on Hulu, maybe had the Nickelodeon license when we did that like 3 years ago or something. And I kept meaning to do it, and now I have no idea where it is. I honestly, today I didn't look up where it was. It's probably somewhere I can totally get to easily. But I think ease of access too is a like catalyst that will actually make me watch the thing. Basically, so if it's on Netflix, I'm probably going to watch it because it's super easy to throw up on any screen in my house, and I can watch it wherever, right? But not the case. So yeah, I don't know. This morning, I found myself thinking a lot about Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I'm a guy who's only seen like the origin episodes, so like who knows where it goes, right? But anyway, let's get into this week's show. If you guys have never listened to Toon Talk Weekly before, this is episode 236, and this is the show where every single week for the last few years, Brad and I have been diving into a different cartoon, whether it's a cartoon we know. Some of my favorites have been like the Nicktoons we used to watch as kids, or stuff from Cartoon Network growing up. Or in the case of this week, I think it's a cartoon neither of us had ever heard of.
No, definitely.
And I think we'll learn a little bit maybe why we didn't hear about it. But this was the cartoon that I mentioned to you probably off show like a couple weeks ago in an offhand comment that was like, I saw a really cool looking title card on Netflix. I'm not sure what the show is. I should look this up. And then I remembered it was Geronimo Stilton. Okay. If that lives up to how cool I thought the title card is, we'll get into it here in a minute. So, so neither of us had heard of this show, but it did pop on Netflix. It looks like season 2 is the only season of its total of 3 seasons that is actually available on Netflix here in the U.S. I imagine it might be a different license in different countries because actually this show is based on a series of children's books of the same name, I think, which might have been called The Adventures of Geronimo Stilton.
Oh, okay.
And the books were created by an Italian author named Elisabetta Dami. So it actually first debuted in Italy in September 15th of 2009 and aired in France as well. So it's an Italian and French cartoon that maybe that's the reason we probably never heard of it.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
And so it's weird to me that Netflix only has 1 season. To be honest, I've never seen it on there before.
There was 2.
Oh, I only saw season 2.
Oh, okay. Maybe I thought there was 2 because I was like, I watched the first episode of season 1 and I was like, oh, maybe I should go watch season 1. Like,
oh, weird. So when I hit the drop down on Netflix, it just shows me season 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I didn't look back. I was like, all right, I watched that one.
Yeah, I might have sent you the very first episode or something like that. But yeah, so I found it kind of interesting that only season 2 is there, which is sort of weird. I think there was something in the production that mentioned that the first and second season were produced by the same company, but the animation for 3 might have been done differently. So I don't know how the rights work for all these things. So who knows why only part of it's there. So as we mentioned, a 2009 show, but I guess they've updated it. And also they basically said it aired from 2009 to now. And maybe it's because it got revived, or maybe it's because it came to Netflix, so they consider that it's still running in a way. 3 seasons, 78 total episodes. And what you can expect from an episode of Geronimo Stilton, like me just saying that name, means nothing at all to you. Like if I were to say, without you, try to cast out of your mind, Brad, that you don't know what this show is about. If I said Geronimo Stilton, what would you think that show is about?
A guy that jumps in to crazy places in the jungle, but he's really tall.
On Stilton. I kind of like that, yeah. All right.
He's an adventurer. He's traveling all over the world, but he's like real tall.
But he has a really good vantage point wherever he goes. It's the best. I love that. I was going to say I alluded to some sort of like action hero kind of thing, somebody leaping into some sort of action or something like that. Wasn't really sure what to expect from the show. But essentially it focuses on the main character, Geronimo Stilton, who's a mouse journalist, and he's head of the Geronimo Stilton Media Group. He searches a lot of New Mouse City for new scoops. I guess that's the main city where everybody resides, while having adventures along the way with his nephew Benjamin, his cousin Trap, and his younger sister Thea Stilton. They're sort of the 4 that help him with the media group and also go on the adventures together. I thought, dude, even looking at the cover art, the green suit that is a custom that is like synonymous with Geronimo Stilton, I thought it was like a mouse, and they're also mice, right? I thought it was a mouse version of like Sherlock Holmes or something.
Well, yeah, like the episode, when it started, it felt very familiar. The one I watched, it just felt familiar, and I was like, I kind of like already feel comfortable in this world. It was really weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely evokes something interesting. We'll get into the episodes I think we each watched different episodes, it sounds like, maybe. But the main characters we'll run into, of course, are the four that I just mentioned. We have the main character, who is Geronimo, which I keep misspelling, by the way. It's Geronimo, which is the real way to spell Geronimo. But you and I followed a streamer for a while on Twitch who spells it incorrectly.
Right, so he's Geronimo and he streams League of Legends, but yeah, it's a different spelling.
But like over time, that spelling has grown on me, even though I'm pretty sure we knew it was wrong. Anyway, there's just a weird side tangent about me misspelling the title of the episode over and over again in the blog post. So he's pretty brave. He loves knowledge. He does have that like Sherlock Holmes sort of attitude, I think, where like he wants to morally and ethically do the right thing and also acquire the knowledge he can. But he also has this sort of lovable trait of being a total klutz. He can totally like trip and break things. We have Thea, who's his younger sister. She loves adventuring, and she's sort of the vehicle like connoisseur, like pilot, basically. Like she has a motorcycle, she flies a plane. She's sort of the one transporting the group to all kinds of new adventures. We have Benjamin, who's the 12-year-old nephew. Of course, he's going to be the brainy, nerdy kid with all the computers and the smart one of the group that kind of knows what he's doing there. And then we have Trap, who is the Joker. He's the cousin. He loves to play tricks on everybody. He's got a big heart, but he's also often like, even though he's the biggest, like largest in stature of the group, he tends to also be frightened of things. He reminded me of the Chippendale Rescue Rangers character, Monterey Jack, who's the big mouse with the mustache.
Okay. Who
is just always like, seems like pretty tough on people, but also can be scared for being like the big burly mouse of the group, kind of. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the show. Like what can you expect from some episodes, from the world, from the art style, the characters, all that kind of stuff. Brad, I watched an episode called The Emerald Chest. It was actually episode 8 of season 2.
Okay, yeah,
so I picked a random one.
I watched episode 1, just as the first one. I guess you should mention that for anyone that's listened to Toon Talk before, we're trying something a little different. We're going to talk about the show in like a bigger picture rather than a single episode.
Right, and I think talking a little bit about the episode you watched as well as the one I watched, maybe not in full detail, but sort of to connect the dots a little bit of what to expect from this show in different settings. Yeah.
In my episode, I skipped the intro. I was like, oh, I can skip it. Skipped. I was like, I got to get to this episode. And I think that kind of made me a little confused, and why I was like, I think I got to go back and watch episode 1 of season 1. But like you said, wasn't on there.
Yeah.
Just because I was like, wait, what's happening? Who are these people? Like, I went in so blind, and I was very confused most of the episode, and I don't like your explanation of who they are and what they do in this world is great, because going into this episode, I was like, who's this show about? I thought it was about Geronimo, and he wasn't really the star of episode 1, season 1.
Okay. Oops. I do think that the intro kind of talks about his adventures and things, if I remember correctly, but I don't think it goes over every single character. They're obviously featured in like the things that they do, the computer whiz kid and the pilot and all that kind of thing. But
yeah, so I to quickly like sum up my episode that I watched season 1, what's happening is the 2 kids, I forget their names now that you've even mentioned it, but they have pet day at school, so they're showing off their pets. The boy, his pet is a robot mouse called Max. So that's happening. And then Geronimo is off to interview this scientist he looks up to. The scientist basically wants to steal all the knowledge in Mouse City. So he basically fries the internet and sucks up all this stuff, and then he's going to the library to take all the knowledge from there, and basically the mouse robot stops the mad scientist, and Geronimo is locked in a closet like the whole episode.
You happen to catch an episode where the titular character is locked in a closet for the entirety of it.
Right. So it's a lot about the little boy and his friend, and then also the buffoon guy. He was
Trap.
He was in it quite a bit.
So wait, I gotta know though, how did this villain? So this one actually took place in the main city, New Mouse City. It sounds like.
Yeah.
And Geronimo, his mission or his assignment was to interview him. But how did this guy start stealing the knowledge? Did he have a vacuum kind of thing? That's what I'm picturing.
I think he just couldn't. I don't know. He's this weird scientist, so he just I don't know, set up some sort of network, and he fried everyone's computer, and they blamed it on the kid and his mouse robot at first.
Interesting.
It was kind of strange. Yeah.
That's so funny. So you jumped in not knowing much about any of the characters or the show to begin with, and then the main character gets locked away and isn't a major part of the saving the day.
His sister has to come save him, and then he doesn't save the day. He just kind of oh, nice work.
Oh man. And it's kind of a weird show, right? Because they kind of they take this liberty of he's technically just a journalist, but also is well known enough that he gets to do these almost heists in a way, or runs into these crazy situations with maybe not necessarily, I don't want to call them super villains, but just bad guys doing bad stuff. Mm-hmm. So he becomes in a way a crime fighter, even though he's technically just a journalist. But I guess in a way that's what journalists do, right? They seek the truth. They try to get the truth out into the press for you and I, right? The normal people. So crazy, man. The episode that I watched called The Emerald Chest, I had to write a little bit of this down, was there was a country called I can never say this, Whiskeritan, so whiskers, right?
Okay.
Or Whiskiristan. And this country has never been open to the public. It's a small little country, and the king of this country invites the Stiltons and his group to come for this millennial celebration that includes a balloon race to basically cover it for the media group for the national news or whatever. And the winner of this balloon race is to receive the oldest heirloom in the kingdom called the Emerald Chest. To kind of sum it up, essentially, first of all, they land. There's the whole world. This is really confusing to me, by the way. The country's called Whiskiristan, which sounds like what, a Middle Eastern country or something? It has that so. Kyrgyzstan or something like that. But all of the decor of the country is very Eastern themed, very evocative of China, Japan, pagodas, dragons, that kind of stuff. But when they show up, dude, the prince or the king of this place is a young guy who just rollerblades. He's a young mouse that just rollerblades everywhere. He's yeah, the kingdom's way too big, so I wear skates. And then he's really interested in Thea, the sister. And so he's yeah, it's really quick to get around with these. Here's a pair of skates. Oh, by the way, everyone else, I only have 2 pair. So everyone else has to walk around this huge kingdom.
Welcome to Whiskiristan. I'm King Liu Shi Mu. I've never seen a king on skates before. And this is Zhang Xi. He seems to think he's my babysitter.
I'm His Royal Highness's bodyguard.
Please, it's not cool that a mouse should bow before another mouse.
Good to see you again, Your Highness.
I'm Benjamin.
Trap's the name. Awesomeness is my game. Gotcha.
Your Highness.
The good old joy buzzer. An oldie but a goodie.
You got me big time.
But sort of through the episode, they start discovering that I think at some point they break an heirloom, like a vase, and all this paint gets all over them. And they say, wait a second, this is a forgery. This isn't fake. Something here is very strange. The only other character you really meet is the bodyguard of the king, who is his best friend from childhood or something. And they paint this picture throughout, especially during the balloon race, where the Stiltons have to go up and film from a hot air balloon, the actual race happening. They paint this picture that they see the bodyguard kind of sprinting off into different scenes where he might be trying to steal this emerald chest, or he might be trying to hurt the king, or that kind of thing. You find out later by the end of the episode that it was this rat at the end of, he was this rat that like was the announcer of the balloon race that was trying to take down the king because he felt like the king was a young guy who was ruining the heritage of this country or something, when really he was just trying to update and modernize it and stuff. And they save the day in this like kingdom that nobody's ever been to, and Geronimo and his friends get to take home the chest, the emerald chest, which actually contained this cheese that had been aged for like 1,000 years, and it just, at some point they opened it and everybody almost died because they're like, oh, I guess this cheese wasn't made for modern noses or something because it's way too strong or something like that. Our weak modern noses can't handle it.
Holy crap.
So mine felt more like an episode of something like Jackie Chan Adventures, where they go to this far off country, they sort of experience a little bit of the culture, although then there's also a balloon race, which is kind of weird in the middle there. But I would say a big chunk of it focused on Thea off to the side being courted by the king, but everybody else trying to save the day. There were lots of jokes about Trap, the sort of like buffoon cousin who was always chewing gum. Like he was like, oh, we're going on a trip, I need to get a bunch of gum. And that gum actually came in handy in like putting back together things or patching a hole in the hot air balloon. Like there was all these very weird sort of scenes with him. It was pretty goofy. So
Thank you so much. That was close, dude. Again, I'm lucky. That's the third time today.
We're not safe yet. Look!
Trap, quick, your bubble gum.
Sorry, last piece.
No, the piece you're chewing.
Yuck!
I'm not going to chew it. I'm going to use it to try to patch the balloon.
Oh.
yeah, so it sounds like between the two episodes we watched, it sounds like the characters, I mean, I'm a little sad you didn't get a little more Geronimo, but even mine, I think he was kind of understated. He, for being the main character, he might be brave and want to do things, but the others seem to take charge when necessary.
Yeah, for me, it almost felt like the show is just DuckTales with mice or something like that. Or maybe Tailspin with mice. Like, stuff happens, maybe you focus on these guys this time.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
But yet, the main character's name is the name of the show, and he's not really the hero, and he has no heroic powers. He's just a guy that reports.
Right.
Because did your episode end with a news report? Because mine did.
Yes, it was like basically them or somebody watching TV of his coverage of the balloon race and like what happened.
Okay, yeah. So mine ended with like the day was saved, thanks to the Max the Mouse. Yeah.
My episode also started and began in his like study that's off of the main office that has all like these artifacts from places he's been.
Oh yeah, mine. I didn't see that.
So maybe it's because you didn't like travel or something like that. I'm not sure what it was, but I had like a weird, what was it called, Angels and Demons or Da Vinci Code like vibe, where it's like, oh, this guy they just hire to come to these countries and see this stuff.
Oh wait, I did see his office because he called his sister in on her day off to cover the phones because he wanted to go interview the mad scientist guy.
Gotcha, yeah.
So I thought that was like his office. And at first I thought he was like the mayor of Mouse City because it felt
it's
like
a gigantic office.
Yeah, it felt more important than what he is.
Yeah. So kind of interesting. It's just like, it's so weird for me to think like, you know, in my case, they go on this like adventure to some foreign country, but then it was really, it's a media group. It's literally like this guy was like, I have a YouTube channel and sometimes people fly me to their country to film their hot air balloons every once a millennia. Like you're not positioning yourself as a hero, and there's something endearing about the main character not being this like save the day hero. He's kind of a humble hero, right?
I did enjoy all the like, I guess, cheese jokes. Did yours have like a few of those?
There's definitely some cheesiness to this show.
Yeah. And the wipes, I had a lot of cool wipes.
Yeah, but they're like pretty slow, right? They weren't super fast, but they would take an element of the episode or something. We had like an airship in ours that would like slowly drift across and wipe the screen. Those were cool. I also agree with what you said, which was earlier on, which was like I've never seen this show, but for some reason, 2-3 minutes in, I was like, I feel at home in this world. Like, it's very comfortable. It had like the same vibe I get from something like A Busy World of Richard Scarry or something like that, where you just feel like you're like, yeah, I get these characters, even though I really don't know who they are.
Yeah, it was weird because I was like, I've seen this. I feel like I was like, I've seen this town before. I like know Mouse City. I don't know, but I was like, it was so weird.
Well, there's a deli down there that I really like. Yeah.
Yeah. Turn left. Yeah.
Turn left. And the character design, great characters, all the mice stuff. I was getting this thing where I felt like a lot of the things I saw they felt like rough, unfinished in a way, but maybe that was part of the style. It gave it like a more friendly, welcoming style that it felt almost like a kid's drawing, or like the lines wouldn't be completely finished around the characters. But then talking about the character animation, holy crap, was it like, I don't want to like Disney's like the pedestal, right? But I felt like there was some real amazing expression in these characters, just small, tiny little details that kind of added up.
Yeah, in mine, there was a lot of cars that drove around, and all the cars had a really awesome, like, springiness to them. When they stopped, they had, like, a nice squishy, like, they felt, I don't know, they felt great, all the movements, so.
Yeah, but there were also scenes where I saw, like, they would fly, the hot air balloon was floating toward the mountain, and they didn't, they had to quickly, like, raise it so they didn't hit the mountain. The side shot of the mountain was perfect when they go over, which is fine, but as they're going towards it, it was like something that you would sketch in a couple of minutes, that you would just like paint the colors to kind of get the shadow right and stuff like that. It reminded me of what I said about the show Camp, where sometimes the character stuff was great, but then the backgrounds looked maybe unfinished or just kind of placed for now kind of thing. But it didn't take away from it. I think there was something very warm and welcoming about this show. A show that you and I have never seen, I think was actually a really interesting watch. Like, because I was weird. Sometimes too, when I do this, I don't know if you ever do this, I'm like, well, I'm watching the show with Brad, even though we don't watch it at the same time. I'm like, I wonder what he's thinking about this right now, because I'm kind of like, I know it's for kids, but I'm kind of like into it.
Yeah, like overall, I like the show, and the familiarness was nice, but at the same time, I didn't really feel like I cared enough about anyone to be like, I want to watch more.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it was the episode I watched too, because like I said, it didn't feel like it focused on the right people, but I was just like, I get it. I might watch more, but it's not up there on my list or anything that I need to see this.
Yeah, I think what I'll say is, and maybe this is what you're trying to say, is that it's very level, the tone of the show. There's like very little what feels like high highs and low lows of like action or urgency or like trepidation, like they might not save the day. Like it's very like low on the ripple scale. I think it doesn't peak to make you feel like something is truly dangerous or someone is really in peril or something like that.
Maybe, yeah.
And maybe that's a product of the age group. I do think it's aimed at younger kids, but still, very cool show. So if you guys have Netflix, check out Geronimo Stilton. Season 2 is over there. I'm guessing elsewhere on the internet you could probably find seasons 1 and 3 if you really want to dive in. But it also doesn't seem chronological, by the way, because nothing really got brought up. I think each one is its own self-contained adventure.
Okay, yeah. So I didn't feel like afterwards I was like, oh, that connected. I was only going to go back and want to watch episode 1 because I was like, what is this? Who are these?
Yeah. So that's going to do it this week, all about Geronimo Stilton. But Brad, where can people find out more about you when you're not recording the show?
So you can follow me on Twitter. It's @brad, or my blog, digitalhitchhiker.com.
Cool. Guys, go check him out. And again, go check out that blog post that Brad posted over on Medium, I think. But it's over on his Twitter as well, about his favorite 5 or 6 cartoons from last year and kind of links to those and also like his thoughts on those shows. You can also follow me on Twitter @Jacob Williams. And of course, if you want more Toon Talk Weekly, we're on Twitter @Toon Talk Weekly, Facebook.com/Toon Talk Weekly. We're over on Google Plus as Toon Talk Weekly as well. You can head on over to YouTube. We don't have a vanity URL yet, but in all of our blog posts, we do have our video versions that we post. So if you guys have only been listening, you can actually watch the video version and see some of the clips of the shows as well. If that kind of helps you get like a better visual of the shows we're kind of talking through as we go. So hit that subscribe button, help us get that vanity URL so I can send you there quicker. And then, of course, toontalkweekly@gmail.com, the main hub for the show, or the main email, rather. If you want to email us, let us know what you think of the show, any episodes we should cover, anything more we should know about shows we've done in the past, because we don't plan on like revisiting shows for revisiting cartoons for a show yet, but always love bringing up information on stuff that maybe we didn't know in the past. So, and I don't care how old it is. If it's about Transformers, for God's sakes, I don't care. It's like, send it. It's fine. And then ToonTalkWeekly.com, guys, the main hub for the show. You can find links there, any blog posts, any episode, all that stuff's going to be over there. So, cool. Successful. Is this third episode of 2018? What year is it?
Nice.
I don't even know. So yeah, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Toon Talk Weekly. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back next week with another cartoon.
Take care.
To learn more about the show, visit ToonTalkWeekly.com or follow us on Twitter at ToonTalkWeekly.